Okay, good evening, everyone. If you could be seated.
Came in 20th in the front.
Nice. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Town of Eastchester Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. This is our February meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025. We start our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Okay, while we're coming to order, I usually take this time at the meeting to go through the ground rules, and I promise everyone will try to run through the calendar as expeditiously as possible, considering there's snow on the way. So let's start with how we conduct our meetings. We follow and obey Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Order. To give you the abridged version of that, action is taken based upon a motion, resolution, and a vote. And when it comes to addressing the board, when you get recognized by the chair, you'll give your name and address for the record. That's frequently during the public hearing. And while we're on that topic, for those new applications, procedurally, as a general rule, when you come up and present, we ask that you don't read your entire presentation. That is a matter of public record. You can if you want. It won't help or hurt your application. We really like you to summarize with an area variance, the 5-part test, with a use variance, a 3-part test. And at that point, the board is given an opportunity to ask questions, sometimes make comments, and then there frequently would be a public hearing thereafter, and an applicant would certainly have a right to reply to anything that comes through on the public hearing. So that's essentially how new applications are heard. Just a reminder, as I remind everyone at these meetings on each application, that we do not accept any new correspondence after the close of the public hearing. That became somewhat common during the COVID era, but when the public hearing is struck down, we cannot accept anything, emails, letters, calls. So everything has to be part of the public record and has to be made before the public hearing is closed. Tonight we have a 4-member board, so we have a quorum. We wish board member Paul Weber well. He's homesick, but I'm sure he's watching, Paul. As far as our calendar, I'm going to go through the calendar very quickly in terms of new matters, and those applicants who are here, I'd like you to let me know that you're ready to proceed. And we have one item which will not be heard tonight. That's 24-14. That's Sprague Road, 6 Sprague Road. That's been adjourned on consent, and the public hearing will remain open on that matter. Okay, now to the calendar. Before I call the new matters, I just want to make a motion to approve the minutes of the January 14th, 2025 meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's been approved. Now, as far as new matters are concerned, the 249 Main Street, 27 New Street, is the applicant here? Are you ready to proceed? Okay. The 101 Ridge Street application, ready to proceed? Okay. 80 Park? Yes. Ready to proceed? And 11 Maple Avenue. Okay. Well, that's last on the calendar, so if they get here in time, they'll still be heard. But right now, that's a question mark. Okay. Start on the resolution calendar. Item number 1, I make a motion to adopt a resolution granting the requested variance as submitted for application 24-0142 Maple Avenue. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
Mr. Miller, to the vote. Mr. Cahalan?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
I vote yes. That application's been approved 3-1. Item number 2, I make a motion to adopt the resolution granting the requested variances as submitted for application 24-46. That's 86 Woodruff Avenue. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller, to the vote. Mr. Cahalan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
I vote yes. That application is approved 4-0. I make a motion to adopt the resolution granting the requested variances as submitted for application 24-47, that's 148 Locust Avenue. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cahalan, to the vote. The vote, Mr. Cahalan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
I vote yes. That's been approved 4-0. Okay, on application number 4, I'm entertaining a motion at this time from Mr. Cahalan.
Oh, I'm going to make a motion to approve application 24-48, 804 Scarsdale Avenue.
Okay, is
Do I
there a
have a s-
second?
Second.
Mr. Miller, to the vote?
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And I will vote yes.
Okay, that's been approved 3-0. I'm abstaining. I had recused myself from that application, so that's been approved 3-0. Thank you, Mr. Cahalan.
You're welcome.
Okay, and finally, on the resolution calendar, I make a motion to adopt the resolution granting the requested variances as submitted for application 24-49, that's 80 Rose Avenue. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, to the vote. Mr. Cahalan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
No.
I vote yes, that application has been approved 3-1. Okay. First item on the calendar before we get to new business is old business, and this is 4 Sprague Road, and perhaps at this time, our attorney could give a little background. Ms. Wilson, can you give a little background on this?
Sure. So this is an application for an impervious surface coverage variance on a property improved with a single-family residence. It was before you in 2022, and at that time, you made an interpretation that gravel is an impervious surface and that the application for an impervious surface coverage variance should be denied. The applicant brought an Article 78 proceeding challenging that determination. And in August of 2024, the court determined that the gravel surfaces should not be included in impervious surface under that definition in our zoning law. And it directed the board to grant the requested variance, which would essentially remove 189 square feet of existing impervious surface and bring the total impervious surface coverage on the property to 3,294 square feet. However, because of the evidence in the record before the court, it authorized your board to consider whether any additional study or analysis for stormwater mitigation is required and whether any additional conditions resulting from that analysis would be appropriate. So I think mainly what we're here to talk about tonight is whether any additional stormwater mitigation is required or appropriate, and to that end, we have Rick Bollender of KSCJ here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if the applicant would like to summarize, give us your name and address for the record, and please proceed.
Sure. So my name is Diana Kolev. I'm from the firm of Del Bello, Danellen, Weingarten, Wise, and Whitaker. And I'm also here tonight with Mr. Myrano from Community Designs, who has, I think he has put up the plan for the application. So thank you very much for the summary, Ms. Wilson. That was accurate. As we submitted a letter which summarized in detail the background of the application. I'm not going to go through that. Our position is that, and as Mr. Myrano has also described in his memo, is that the existing mitigation, stormwater mitigation on the property is sufficient to handle the additional 244 square feet of impervious surface that is calculated based on what was previously approved in 2022 versus what we're proposing now. So that's why we're here tonight. If you'd like him to go through that with you, he can do that.
Sure.
Yeah. If you can.
Thank you.
You can do it.
And I just, while he comes to the microphone, the applicant did notice for a public hearing this evening because you are accepting new evidence, so I just wanted to remind you that after the applicant's presentation and the presentation by our consultant, there will be a public hearing portion.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Board. Dal Myrano from Community Designs and Engineering.
Thank you.
Not to go into, and obviously in the memo there, we tried to summarize the project in its entirety as far as the history of when the plans were submitted for another architect did those plans and what was approved and everything was inspected and all that. So essentially, to summarize it in bulk, the existing patio has a trench drain basically surrounding the entire backside and right side of the patio, which they divert the water into two Coltech systems, 330 units that are calculated as far as the Eastchester standard of the tributary area of those units taking on the patio. Will be essentially what is proposed, not what is existing, what is proposed, the area we calculated. What was existing was the 405 square feet minus what will ultimately be when we remove that yellow shaded area. So those two units are sufficient enough for that additional 650 square feet that they will capture.
Thank you. You know, I think at this time, it may be a good idea to have our consultant, Mr. Tremelli, come up and explain a little bit about his findings on the current existing water mitigation.
Sure.
Rick Bolander, KCJ Consulting. I went back and looked at how the original stormwater system was designed, and this is going back to 2020, plans that were designed by Stephanie Mylensky. There was, in the zoning code, in the zoning table included on those plans, the existing impervious area was 2,565 square feet. So I wanted to compare that number to what we will ultimately be at after the work is performed, after X amount is removed, patio area and whatnot. I thought that'd be the easiest, cleanest way to do it instead of trying to retrace and, okay, this is gonna be removed, this is gonna be added. So that net number is equal to 729 square feet. So with the type of Coltech chambers that were installed, 330s, I did a quick calculation using the number in the town of Eastchester code that allows for, it's 0.234, which is about 3 inches of rainfall, which is what this was originally designed for. The amount of impervious that was to be mitigated equals about 2.15 units for the 330s. There's 2 installed. I had, so there's a little bit, it's a little bit undersized. And I had conversations with a design engineer, and there are areas to lose additional existing impervious areas that would eventually balance this out, and the system that's currently in place would function as it was designed.
Okay, thank you. Sure,
Question?
please. Mr. Cahalan?
As I recall, there was supposed to be 3 of these tanks installed on the property. Is that correct?
I've never seen, I have pictures, I've seen the 2 that were installed. I don't know about the 3rd one. Obviously I've heard about it, I haven't seen it. So as far as our office is concerned, it doesn't exist. And that's an option. If it's there, they could figure out a way to connect those.
Well, that was my question. I guess you can't tell me if you're saying these are slightly undersized. But if there was a 3rd tank, we wouldn't have the runoff that we have if it was connected, right?
If it was connected, we would not. And I don't want to say we wouldn't have the runoff, but we wouldn't have it as designed with the impervious areas.
So how do we get proof that this is working?
Short of digging up that 3rd unit, I don't know, unless they could provide pictures of it. I haven't seen pictures of it, I don't know.
Counselor, please.
So there is a 3rd unit. It has not been connected at this time. After these discussions that we've had, in order to balance out that the numbers that were mentioned, my client is willing to reduce a couple of areas of impervious surface as part of this process right now, in order to get it to the point where those 2 Coltechs are going to be sufficient under and the capacity is going to be sufficient under your code. And so if you are willing to consider granting, well, you're directed to grant the area variance by the court, but that's something that we can work out with your consultant's office in terms of how much of additional impervious surface we would need to remove in order to meet that formula. Right now, we're proposing removing 189 square feet, so we would remove, I don't know the exact number if we've reached it yet, but whatever the additional amount would be.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
please, Mr. Majorano.
Summarize very quickly how the numbers are just a little bit different. So in the original architect's drawing, the reason why there's a difference in what was existing and what is proposed, these stepping stones were not included in the overall tabulation of the square footage of what's existing, and we obviously included it. So our existing square footage number is just a bit different from what the original architect had. In our drainage, we tried to look at solely what was being captured in the back patio. So we took the overall area of the back patio minus what the back patio was existing. That's why our numbers are, we have the 650, he has the 729. So that's where the number, I know it's negligible in the, maybe the grant, but not, but that's where the numbers are different.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what we were going over as well, back and forth.
Okay, Helen, would you like to?
Yeah, I got more. So how do we know that the two that are installed are working properly? Have they been flushed out? Have they been, you know,
Yeah, so in my,
sent something through?
in my memo there, the building department did do an inspection on them. The architect did supply a certification letter that they went out there and inspected, and we also have pictures of evidence of, you know, nothing that the piping, the gravel, everything used,
Yeah,
they were
but
properly done. But
Here's
those-
my problem. You show me pictures from when they're installed, supposedly. They don't work, supposedly. They're undersized now because the calculations are off. How do I trust that anything that's in here is right?
So not, so.
How do you gotta make me feel comfortable
Okay,
about
so,
this.
so why they're undersized is because of these stepping stones that are not included in the original calculation versus what is included now. These stepping stones have nowhere near going to be captured in the back patio. The only thing that gets back in the back patio is everything that's in the back there that goes into the trench drains. Typically, when, you know, somebody does a patio, the building department will inspect, but in this case, we sort of have, you know, a backup where the architect also did their due diligence and inspected and are certifying that everything was installed properly. So at least here we have, you know, two areas of inspections.
And
So
I
that
appreciate that.
definitely helps, but-
But let's call this application what it is. From day one, it was never done the way it was originally approved. Okay? So that's a fact. So now you want us to believe that by reducing the square footage, you're going to capture the water that continues to run off. So how much, and you can't tell me tonight how many square feet that's going to be.
Counselor?
Okay, so, you know, with all due respect, I mean, we're following all the procedure that is typically followed by any other applicant. In 2020, you had your building department issue a building permit and then a certificate of compliance for 3,050 square feet of mitigated coverage on this site. Okay, so that's not up for dispute. I mean, that was your building department. We're proposing 3,294, which is less than what was granted by your board originally as a variance, but I won't get into that. But my point is that additional small, I think it was like 244 square feet is what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the entire property.
I understand.
So, and those 244 square feet are going to be mitigated by those same Coltech units that were approved as installed in 2020. There was no reason to believe that somebody somehow dug it all up again and disconnected it. So that is, I mean,
I'm not
that's,
saying that at all.
okay.
I'm not saying that at all, because from what I can see over the years here, somehow we have water, right? We have water that never gets taken away. So I don't know what happened here, but if this is working properly, is it? I mean, it's a fair question in my mind.
Well, the court has directed that this is appropriate and that we're really talking about that small difference, which we have shown based on calculations of under your own code will be handled by those Coltech units. So in terms of the allegations of water, that's something that was also addressed by the court, and I don't want to rehash all of that now, okay, but because there's no evidence that it was at the time, it was that this water was after the installation of the Coltech units, okay? So this is what we're here for tonight. We're trying to resolve your concerns, and so what we've proposed, I think we believe is fair, which is to remove the additional few square feet. Maybe it's lifting a few of those stepping stones in order to balance out the formula for the Coltech units. We believe that that's a reasonable solution here.
That's the variance you're asking for.
No, that's,
Well,
so
that's
we're
what the
going to
court
be,
is-
we're
the
going to
court
be
is directing
further,
us
we're
to
going to
do
be
this.
even further reducing what it is that we originally asked for. That's what we're proposing to do.
Right. The court directed the grant of the variance, but said that there was evidence in the record
was still
that warranted perhaps additional evaluation of whether water was leaving the property. And so what we've been working on is trying to do that evaluation to present you with information about whether the units were installed and properly sized. And so this discussion that we're having now about removing additional impervious surface would go to that condition that the court was referencing,
Well,
if it's warranted to
All-
mitigate the
All I'm
impact.
saying is, I'm sure that these are installed. I'm not saying that they weren't there.
Right.
My problem is I don't understand why they're not working.
Is the question, has anyone checked to make sure they're not clogged at present and that they're currently functioning? Is that something that was done for this?
Has that been done?
You can talk about it.
So I can only say for the time that I went out there in a rain event and didn't witness any water spilling over the trench drains. When we also went out there another time, we poured buckets on the patio to see that the patio was properly pitched, because that could be a
Pitched,
thing.
okay.
That is a big thing in patios where people just put a trench drain at the end and they pitch the
It never
patio.
gets there, I understand.
Exactly. So in this case, not only is, well, the trench drain surrounds the entire patio, so the water, and it's a very flat patio. Sometimes when you have an incline and you have a major rain event, that water can get into the trench but then come out of it. So only in our, sort of 2 times going by the site, one with the bucket, one with the a natural rain event was occurring, there wasn't any water witnessed that was spilling over the trench drain going into any neighbor's
Okay,
property.
Thank you, Mr. Majorano. Anything further, Mr. Cahalan?
not now.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Conway?
Nothing for me.
I don't have anything at this time. I make a motion at this point to open the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so anyone from the public like to be heard on this application, give me your name and address and come forward and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Peter Telesco, 892 Post Road, Scarsdale, New York. I really wasn't planning on speaking tonight because I've been speaking about this for 5 years now. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I have to say that this discussion, way back when in 2020, there was a set of plans submitted, which you guys approved the variance. The work was done. The building department was called, tested everything, signed off on it, and then a completely new scope of work was done afterwards. So the fact that's trying to be made tonight that, yes, your building department signed off on it and approved it, they did under the first plan. They certainly didn't approve anything from all of the additional work that was done. So how is that not factored into this? How is it not factored into this whole discussion that we're here tonight because something illegal was done? You received the variance, accepted it with a smile on your face, did a job when nobody was looking, did a completely different job, and that's not the way the world is supposed to work. So my concern is something was approved on Plan A, and now we have Plan B there. You can read me all of the numbers you want from these papers and from this and that. I live it. I know what happens. I know what it was before. I know what it was after. It's a travesty. This is an out-and-out travesty, what's being allowed to happen. And I don't know what else to say other than that. And I'm asking for 5 years for something correct and proper to happen, and we're still back here, and it's still an unjust situation that's being allowed to occur, and it's not good. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation.
If I could just
Please.
kind of clarify some of the history, because there was an intervening application. So there was the original application in 2020 for an overall coverage that is similar to what is proposed at present. The applicant did then complete construction pursuant to a building permit for a deck and the patio, including the Cultex chambers that we're discussing. The extent of that coverage was like 3,050 square feet under that building permit. Shortly thereafter, the applicant did construct some improvements on the property and some additional impervious surface without permits. There was an enforcement proceeding. Most, if not all, of those improvements have been removed. And this application is kind of the last piece to kind of close that out, because the applicant removed several of the improvements, but wanted to slightly expand the patio or keep a small portion of the expanded patio. And that's where the reduction of the 189 square feet come from that original construction is kind of being pared back now to get to the coverage variance that we are looking at. So there was that intervening period where work without a permit was done, but there was an enforcement proceeding that addressed that, and many of those improvements have been removed. I don't know if the applicant wants to address it further than that.
That is all accurate. Thank you. And yes, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to finalize and legalize it so that we can, so that my client can just live his life and not have to be back and forth between these proceedings.
Yeah, so the last piece is kind of removing that. There's some perimeter landscaping that's proposed, and so that is the application currently before you.
So could we require additional landscaping as part of this?
If it would go to that water mitigation
The water mitigation,
aspect.
yes. If we,
There is landscaping proposed.
Yeah,
Maiorano, please.
It's been a long time. So yeah, there is actually proposed landscaping, additional landscaping, as you see in green, arborvitaes, that will help also mitigate some of the water on the property line. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 in the back, 4 planting in the side. This is also something that we worked back and forth with Margaret. When Margaret was here, she was big into landscaping, so we tried to propose removing impervious area and
are you
also,
saying Noel's not at that?
no, but, I totally
Enemy
forgot
of
about
landscaping.
it was removing the area to get to a certain number and also provide some landscaping as well, because it was also because of the gravel. So how do we, hide some of the gravel, put some landscaping in place of where the gravel is as well.
So there's,
Excuse me one sec, hold on. I want to make sure the stenographer gets all this. Counselor?
I was just going to say, requiring the connection of the third unit, wouldn't that resolve the whole thing?
So the reason that gets very difficult with that is, one, we don't know the exact elevation from one unit to the next. And then because there are 2 units here and there's one on the other side of the patio, he'd have to rip up a good amount of the patio, break up all of what was done, connect those. We were also talking about making the situation, worse sometimes, but so if this elevation is different, then it really doesn't do much. The sole purpose of this unit was he was going to put, which is not being proposed, he's not doing a cover over the wood deck and connect the roof over the wood deck to that unit. Future reserve capacity was for possibly doing a roof over the deck. That's not happening, so that's why that unit is not, being utilized. But the problem is, one, knowing the elevation, 2, obviously ripping up a very good amount of the patio, what's there. There's also a step there, so you have to cut into the step, and the only way is really to truly connect the unit, not just to connect, the trench drain to there, because then it's only going to that one unit. It would be connecting both of them together. I think the client would probably be open to, moving some additional area really to get that number exactly to the 2.0 and not the 2.1 or 1.9.
Thank you, Mr. Maiorano. Counselor, anything further?
No.
Mr. Cahalan, you wanted to ask a question?
so on your planting plan, are you going to, when you figure out how much more you have to take out, right? You're gonna give us more than 100, you're gonna reduce it by 189, right?
Yes.
So are you gonna reduce it further to say 200, 205, 210 feet?
I don't want to answer that, but
I'm just asking, propose, could it happen?
yeah, it could be.
Because the only way you're gonna get to your number is to do that, correct?
Yeah, so what we were saying is the reason because the numbers are different is because of the stepping stones that were, I don't know.
But again, I have no sympathy, those were put in, they're in there.
Sure, so yeah, so if we were to get to that exact number, then it would be removing more than what you call it 200 square feet of impervious surface and also the landscaping.
So would you plant in that area too?
He can, although we do have significant amount of planting. There's 12 abrevieties and 6.
I read the
skipper.
plan, I know it's
Oh, okay.
there.
So, I mean, an additional plant maybe can be added, but that area would be probably, like I said, it would be a very small area, probably, 20 square feet here. And obviously the stepping stones, which are 90 square feet, which is a significant amount of area, those just won't do any justice for
No, you can't
stormwater.
put anything there, I get that.
Exactly.
Okay, just asking.
Anything else?
I'm sure they want me to stop.
Okay, as the public hearing is still open on this, is there anyone else from the public who would like to be heard on this application? Okay. Seeing no one else, before I make a motion. Counselor, yes.
So the question becomes, if the way we are going to address the conditions that we've been discussing is to remove some additional impervious surface, I guess my question becomes, did you want to see that in plan form, or do you want to defer for review by the town engineer? How do you want to quantify that for the purposes of a resolution?
Well,
And if- yeah.
I'm sorry, I apologize for interrupting. I would take the board's temperature, but I think at this juncture, deferring to the town consultant would make more sense, because we're looking for not just the nuance of the changes and how that affects the mitigation, but also the fact that in modifying the application, they're modifying it downward toward more mitigation, not requiring more mitigation, but actually less. So would anyone feel a need to see further plans, or are we okay with our expert opining? Mr. Cahalan, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to just say I'm fine with the town engineer and keep my thoughts to myself.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I certainly defer to the town engineer.
Mr. Conway?
I'm fine deferring to the town engineer as well.
I am as well. So I think what we will do is keep the public hearing open.
Well, if you're comfortable deferring to the town engineer, then I would think that the condition would be, obviously to grant, the resolution that you would consider at the next meeting would be to grant the variance in accordance with the court's directive, subject to the condition, that the work is done in accordance with the project plan, so that, that the area that's being removed is what's highlighted in yellow, and that the landscaping will be installed. And then I guess we could phrase it, to reduce the impervious surface coverage to an additional extent, subject to the satisfaction of the town engineer. I don't know if you think that's too open, or if you think that's satisfactory, if you want to try
Counselor?
to put a number onto it at
sorry.
this point.
So that all sounds good to us. I would just suggest that I think by the time that the next meeting comes around, we should be able to reach that number. So I think that's something that if we can resolve that by that point, then we can have it more specifically in the resolution.
Okay.
That's
So procedurally, I'm inclined to leaving the public hearing open only because that engineering finding is going to be part of the public record, and the public theoretically should have an opportunity to be heard on that. Your thoughts?
Well, that's completely up to you. You can defer the conditions so that you do not have to keep the hearing open. And what you're saying in that breath is that the town engineer will make the determination as to where the impervious surface coverage should be removed. Otherwise, you're really not deferring to him. You're kind of wanting to make that determination with additional input.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Cahalan?
I'm more comfortable just closing the public hearing, getting the engineer on board and telling us what the number is so that we can get this application done.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Conway?
I'm fine with that approach as well.
Okay, I am going to be as well, with the understanding that this is a unique application because we're directed by court order to approve the variance. So all we're really doing is pruning the edges of a mitigation plan.
That's correct.
So I don't think there's any either substantive or procedural due process of the public being heard on this. How about that, Counselor? Are we good with that?
Yeah, that's fine, because that we may get the plan in advance of the resolution so that the town engineer can start to review it, wouldn't change the condition that you're talking about right now, that it is going to be subject to his approval.
That's all I had to hear. Thank you very much for your input. Now I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this application is going to be adjourned, and this is a very odd motion, for an affirmative resolution at the next meeting and in incorporation by reference into that order of the mitigation plan.
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so, next item is the first item of new business, and I'm going to turn over the chair of this application to Mr. Cahalan. I'm required to recuse myself because I am conflicted on this application, and under the law, I'm also required to remove myself physically, Counselor. So, Mr. Cahalan, you're in charge. I'll be back when it's over.
You sure you want to say that?
Wait, he's got to go 3-0. They know it's got to go 3-0?
There's no
No.
decision tonight.
There's no decision tonight.
They know the next time.
No, next time it could be 4 because Stephen can jump in. Doesn't change a vote. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tell us who you are.
Can I refer to you as Mr. Chairman?
Please don't.
Very well. For the record, David Smith, Principal with Planning and Development Advisors. I'm a land use planner with offices at 101 Lee Avenue, Yonkers, New York. I'm here tonight on behalf of Mr. Angelo Agavino and Eastchester Manor Developers, LLC. They're the applicants. Joining me is Mr. Antonio Freda, who is the project architect, and Mr. Brian Dempsey from DTS Provident, who's our traffic engineer. As you'll recall, this project has a long history in the town. I'll just give a quick summary. But in July of 2020, the planning board issued a site plan approval for this particular project, or this site, a portion of this site, 249 Main Street. That project included a 15-unit development, 4-story building, 9 one-bedroom units, and 6 two-bedroom units, supported by 26 parking spaces. As part of the 2020 approval, that application required seeking 5 variances from your board, which were all granted. Since that time, Mr. Agavino has acquired an additional lot, you recall 27 New Street, and I'll just... So for purposes, here's Main Street. This was the 247, 249 lot that was a part of the 2020. Mr. Agavino purchased a separate lot, 27 New Street, in the back. So that went from approximately 0.35 acres to 0.48 acres. So as part of the revised plan, Mr. Agavino had proposed a 25-unit project, 6-story buildings. 15 of the units would be 1-bedroom, 10 would be 2 bedrooms. That application was submitted to your board, I believe, in December of 2023, and you reviewed it in January of 2024. As you recall, there were significant issues that your board had raised with respect to building height, that application required a variance going from 4 stories to 6 stories. So those comments were noted. The applicant then proceeded to the planning board. The application was reviewed extensively through the course of 2024, and then actually in January of 2025 this year, the planning board, after review and revisions to the proposed plan, granted a negative declaration. And that was based in part on a reduction of the overall building height from 6 stories to 4 stories. So now it is a zoning compliant height-wise. We modified the residential distribution so that all of the proposed residential units are now one-bedroom units. Before we had a mix, so they're all one-bedroom units. And we've revised the site circulation to allow for fire trucks, and there's been some significant coordination with the Eastchester Fire Department, but to allow fire trucks to enter off of Main Street, and then they can exit New Street. Another additional comment raised with respect to circulation was delivery trucks. So delivery trucks can actually enter through Main Street, and then they can exit off of New Street. And this has been reviewed by the town's traffic engineer as part of that evaluation. So that brings us to our request for 7 variances, the first of which, the required number of parking spaces. Under the code, parking required is 38 spaces. We're providing 30. The next several variances were all reviewed as part of the prior 2020 application. That includes the maximum impervious surface coverage, the landscape buffer. There's a condition about the maintenance and care and snow removal. And I'll just reiterate that the applicant has committed that they'll have management do the maintenance of the property, and they will remove the snow as part of the conditions. The backup aisles are slightly deficient. And then there's one of the newer requests is for a parking angle. That's for the vehicles to do parallel parking adjacent to the building. And last, there's a requirement that no driveway serving other than a one or two family dwelling shall have a grade in excess of 5% in the platform area. And as you recall, in Exhibit 4 in our submission, we included a graphic which we included the last time, which just shows the situation. It's a very small portion. It's adjacent to the fire department property. This is Exhibit 4 in our submission. And that that would require a significant regrade for not only this property, but also the adjacent fire department property. So with that, we have made a formal submission. We've included the test for variances, and I'll just summarize real quickly. No undesirable change to the neighborhood. I think that one of the biggest issues that your board had raised and the planning board confirmed was building heights. We've modified the plan to bring it down to zoning compliance. We believe that this type of housing is needed, not only here in the town of Eastchester, but throughout Westchester County. These households will help support businesses and services within the local area. It's certainly within walking distance to many of the different goods and services. And then there would be no adverse effect on the environment. I think that's borne out by the findings that the planning board made with respect to the modifications in the plan that was reviewed. So, Mr. Chairman, that is our summary of our presentation. Be happy to answer any questions or open it to the public. Thank you.
Okay.
And we have the town's engineering consultant, Mr. Bollinger, is here on this application as well. And we have Mr. Rosillo from Colliers, our traffic engineer, if you'd like to hear from them.
Great. So I'm going to go to the board first. Gentlemen, any questions?
Not this round.
Nothing?
No questions, but just a couple comments I'll share. I was happy to see that you reduced the proposed height from 6 stories to 4. But I'm still a little troubled by the parking situation. 38 spots is the minimum what's required. You're gonna have 30. I may still think 38's probably on the lower side, but I know that's what the minimum requirement is. I think of 25 units, I'm thinking there's gonna be possibly 50 cars there. And that neighborhood's very densely populated. we've heard from residents say that they're concerned about the parking, people having to park on the streets there. I know from having driven my kids to Waverly for a number of years, like that's just a very congested area. And like it doesn't feel like a fit to me in that neighborhood. I know you've talked about the economic impact or boost it would provide, having 25 units in the town would support local businesses, but I'm not sure that the residents in that neighborhood agree with that. I mean, that's kind of what I'm struggling with. It's a very congested area, and you're adding 25 to 50 more cars to that neighborhood. I'm struggling with that, so
Okay, Mr. Conway?
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I have some some of my concerns with that. I mean, obviously, they heard us about the 6-story, it doesn't fit, they move it down to within the zoning code. But I don't want to make light of some of the things on the plans. Your turning radiuses are very, very tight. I mean, those corners there, from what I can see on the plans, you've got not a foot, you've got inches for those cars to turn, which, one question I have is, management going to reside? Are they going to be, is there a superintendent's apartment that's going to be given up? Or these are all rentals, and you bring in a porter and a super during the day just to keep the place clean? How's that going to work? Because having run properties, it doesn't work with snow removal unless somebody's on site. I know this. I've done 12-unit buildings, and I've done 105-story unit buildings. It doesn't work unless somebody's on site.
Right. So,
Can you answer how that's gonna, that was one of my concerns, was the snow removal. Also, I'll give it to you all at once. So you put an area in for trucks, right? So I don't believe Amazon or FedEx, even though you're providing the space for them, I don't think they're gonna pull in. I think they're gonna pull on Main Street like they do in every other part of town, not just here,
right.
everywhere. Even on 22, they pull up and they block traffic. In this particular area, it's so tight down there.
Yeah.
I understand you're giving them someplace to go, but let's be practical. They're not doing it. Even the United Postal Service will not take advantage of that space to deliver the mail or packages, right? So that's a real concern about, to talk to your issue, Mr. Conway, about what's going to happen in front. And I know you can't control that, but that's something we have to consider. Like I said, my thing was the turning radiuses are very tight there. And one of the things that struck me when I was looking at this last night, again, was I appreciate what you did with the property behind, and you're creating, one way in, and then you can go around, right? Yes. But if I want to be a pain in the neck, right, I can come in new, I could make a right behind the building and go out on Main. But I could also go straight down the in driveway. So what is going to prevent my tires from not, going over straight out into Main Street as a cut-through? And I love the kids in town, but, they can be a little bit of a story sometimes. They'll do this, which will cause a problem for other people in the neighborhood, And I appreciate, I read the plan, you said there's no problem with the schools or anything like that, but let's be honest, we're in Westchester County. Very few people are going to walk to the store. They're not going to go to ShopRite. They're going to drive their car over there. And if they have 2 cars, even if we don't have 50 cars, if we have 35 cars, where are those extra cars going to go? Into the neighborhood, which isn't fair to the neighbors behind, and there's no place on the other side really to put them. So, like I said, I have that. You took out landscaping, which is never a good thing in my mind. You had landscaping on the original plans, and now it's been removed so you can do some stuff. So that's one of the things I have a concern about. Like I said, the backup and maneuvering angles, it doesn't seem like a big deficiency, but when you've got an SUV, it's a big deficiency. And I would like you to talk about the platform grade in detail, because I've been to the site, and I'm not an engineer, so can someone tell me what you're talking about with this grade?
How you doing? My name is Angelo Agavino. I'm the owner and hopefully the developer of this project. One of these variances have been rectified with the building department, the 25-foot width. We have, in the plans that we submitted with you guys, the newer ones, we fixed that.
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah, so this is the issue with that one. There was a discrepancy in a prior set of plans. There are two backup and maneuvering aisle variances, one for 24 feet, a deficiency of 1 foot, and one for 24.9 feet, a deficiency of 0.1 foot. And that variance has been rectified to get to 25 feet. So if you look at the backup and maneuvering aisle, there's only one variance there that's needed for the 24-foot aisle width. The second one that's a smaller dimension has been rectified to show 25 feet in width. It was, you know,
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's
I meant
okay.
I tried to grab Dave before he did the presentation. I apologize. I just didn't want to interrupt him in the middle of him speaking.
Good call.
So to get to your issue about the ramp in front, so it's the existing sidewalk that's there that travels along a main street, so it goes from the firehouse and continues. If we brought that to, so what's deficient here is from just a bit past the sidewalk into the property, it's the town property, to the curb that we're asking for a variance. It was issued last time I asked for, to build this building. You guys permitted that variance, but it's what it is just from the blacktop and a few feet in past the sidewalk. So if we drop the sidewalk down, as you're walking down Main Street, you're gonna have a,
Dip. Okay.
I'm not, the property and the driveway going into into the building and driving towards Main Street, if you're driving towards Main Street, in the aisle passing the building, that is 5% and is to code. It's
Okay.
just.
That
from
one
the
side.
blacktop,
Okay.
a few, I mean, I'll show you on the plan. So where are we? So if you're traveling in here, this is the sidewalk, this is the apron here, so this would be the blacktop here. So from this point to just where that arrow is right there, where that black line, that's where it is, and that's existing. Now, it would be, I don't even know how that would happen, if we would have to change sidewalks going down in front of the firehouse, change their driveways and going
Okay.
forward. It's not, from here in, it's perfect.
Okay.
It's, it would be very difficult to do that. I mean,
I understand. And then the other question I didn't bring up was, you have a compactor room?
Yes,
How
sir.
are you handling with garbage? Is it a compactor in chutes, or is it
we have-
pails and?
we have, so the compactor room's in the basement. It's gonna be cooled, so it doesn't smell. And there's a little bit of a ramp here from the basement that comes up, and with the garbage company that we use, we'll schedule, this building is designed for rental, so I wanna keep it and rent it, hopefully. Put the garbage in
So you're gonna use
places and bring it out,
so you're gonna have a private car to come,
yes.
and they're gonna enter there, stop, and go back out new?
Well, my guys would go in there and bring out the trash.
Right, they would put it
And-
out on whatever day the night before or whatever.
No, it would be, we're not proposing any trash to be out on the curb. It's gonna be in the building, in a garbage truck.
Okay,
That's the plan that we're proposing to you guys. I mean, I'm open to doing so, but this building, I think I'm okay, I'm allowed to use town carting, but with all these apartments, I don't think it would work out. I would have to have,
yeah, I don't think the garbage guys are going down that driveway, so,
yeah.
okay.
So with the fact that, people driving in and out, there's a building that's just a little bit north of this that has a similar driveway. So if someone's doing that, they're gonna do it, but, I mean, to drive down New Street and then come across there, it's just a few houses down. It's not like we're for someone to do that, it's gonna be,
Obviously, you're gonna put a do not enter sign up, I would hope.
yes.
Right?
Absolutely. The traffic engineer and your town engineer had we proposed signs that we're gonna post up.
You know, I read the traffic engineer, and, you know, I'm trying to find the words. It's like, in all my years doing this, I have never seen a traffic engineer say, this can't be done. So I appreciate that, you know, he did his work, but to me, you're not gonna get 100 cars an hour there, and that's kind of like the baseline for traffic studies. So you're going to get situations there that are going to happen no matter what. And you know, that's just, this is going to create that situation that's not there now. And that's a concern that we have to think about for the neighborhood and for the rest of the residents that live there.
I understand.
So, and that's one of the big ones. I mean, it's great that, you know, it's not going to, you know, create, we're being told it's not that big of a deal, but the reality is as I said, no delivery truck is gonna go down that aisle. They're gonna stop in front.
So,
They just are.
I mean,
You can't control that.
I 100%, I understand. There are parking spots here in the front, which the fire department have use of. They have their volunteer guys park here, that it's just blocked specifically for them, I apologize. So most of the time, there's a car there. And theoretically, if a the Amazon guy or the US Postal, they would probably block the driveway, most likely, if they do, or hopefully pull in.
But it's
The
so,
gentleman.
it's so
They-
narrow right there.
Theoretically, they wouldn't block the street.
Yeah, but plus you're going right next to the firehouse. Those are big trucks that come out of there. If you got a FedEx truck, that fire department truck ain't making that turn. It ain't happening.
Right adjacent to the
Yeah,
property
you're right
here.
next door, right?
Well, there's, they have like, their equipment driveway, they have a garage that goes down.
Yeah, I've been in
So
the
it's-
house many
yeah,
a
it's-
time.
It's not like a truck doesn't sit in that, a truck sits, I don't know, probably 20, 30 feet away.
I know
in
it's an
there.
extra wide driveway and all of that,
Yeah,
but
but it's very far from the actual driveway
it
that's
seems that
pulling
way
in.
until there's an emergency.
Understand.
That's what I'm gonna say. And you also got the volunteer ambulances coming out of there. Shouldn't be a problem for them either, but you never know what's gonna happen. So, those were my comments. So, anything else from the board?
No.
All right, so then I'm gonna ask to make a motion to open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Wow, I got that right, okay.
Not so easy.
It isn't. I don't know,
Very daunting.
I better buy Ellen a drink, so. Okay, is there anybody here from the public who would like to talk about or speak on this application? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public
Well,
hearing.
before you do that, did you want to address any of the comments? Is there anything else you might like to see on this application? Just making sure that we cover all those bases before we decide to close the public hearing.
Yes.
Well, I didn't, thank you very much. I would like to see how, you know, like you say you're going to have a snow company.
I'm sorry, say it again?
You say you're going to have snow removal.
Oh, yes.
So what are you going to do, bring a dump truck in and a Bobcat?
The company that we're proposing to use, they have ability to do that. I'm also looking into the heated glycol system in the driveway, because I understand that's, but they have the ability to truck out they do it for a property that's just in Tuckahoe. So I found them, and they come over with a skid steer, and they push everything into one, and they load it up into, I mean, this is gonna be a high-end building. I'm not gonna just be messing up parking spots that, you know, I would,
Well, no, I mean, I'm
I
sure you're
wouldn't
going to
wanna-
charge for those parking spots, right? They're not
Absolutely.
free,
yes.
right? But from my perspective, a lot of times when they get frustrated, they just push it out into New Street, or they'll push it out into Main Street.
I'm an Eastchester resident, and I wouldn't allow that. I wouldn't pay a company.
And I wouldn't say you would, but let's be practical. You're not going to be there 24/7.
I understand, but
You know.
I'm gonna be paying, it's not like
I know.
it's free that I'm gonna pay a snow company that
I
just kinda
understand,
like
but the
just
damage is
pushes it.
done.
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's done. So, yeah, you could fire them or tell them you're not going to pay, but now they created a situation. So, and I know you're trying to mitigate it to the best you can. I understand that, and I appreciate that, that's an extra cost that you normally wouldn't have in this type of a property, right? If it was on a bigger piece of land. You would be able to remove the snow yourself.
Absolutely. And, the company they do it for another building, I've seen what they did. I went through the snow, the last past snow, they did a great job. So, I mean,
Okay,
I'm willing to take on that cost because this is part of, the board's the town's requirement to.
I understand.
And with the lot, it's very difficult.
yeah, I mean, I really, even though you satisfied one of those turning radiuses, when I look at those plans, man, that's a tight space in those corners. So I worry somebody's gonna get clipped, for sure. And the number of parking spaces, again, it's just, you're not gonna, at a high-end building like you're proposing, people will have 2 cars, most of them will. It's not like you're putting seniors in there that have 1 car.
This building is gonna be advertised with the parking there. It's not like, I'm gonna be like, hey, you could come and rent this spot and then park on the streets. These are the spots that I have, 1 per apartment, and I'm gonna have
Well-
maybe like 1 or 2 for a guest.
See, that was my other question that I didn't bring up was, how are you gonna have guest parking? Where are they gonna park? So if you only have 1 or 2, you only have 30, and let's just say you really do only have 25 people, you're gonna use 5 for guests? Is that what you're thinking, or 1 or 2 for guest parking? Because that's we had a young man die a couple of weeks ago in town, and right down the street was the funeral home. You could not find a parking space to get into that wake. I had to drive around 35 minutes to find the parking space in that area. So, it's a tough area to park in. Even trying to go into the local pub there, Jack's, on a Friday or Saturday, it's tough to get in because you can't find the parking space. It's just a tough area for parking, and I think that's one of our concerns is that issue for sure. So, and I know you're doing your best to mitigate it. It's not like you're standing up there saying, I'm not going to do anything. We hear you. It's just understand where we're coming from. We have to think about the town-wide.
What I want, the type of people that we're gonna advertise towards, and I deal with the agency in Eastchester here. We're gonna target mostly people that go to the city. That's the way we're gonna advertise it, 1 spot. If you have 5 cars or 2 cars.
This ain't for you.
You're gonna be, it's gonna be, it's not like I'm selling these units and then this guy buys it and then he could, he's gonna bring in his friends and park 15 cars, or this building is gonna be advertised this way. If the people like it, they'll rent it. If they don't like it, I'm sure they'll find other buildings and, other places.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied. Any other things?
Further from me?
Okay.
Nope.
So now I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I get a second? Mr. Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you put your hand up.
I was pointing.
Okay. Seeing that there's nothing else and no one from the public commented, we'll come back at the next meeting with the resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we just want to take a minute, I'll let Ellen back in.
Do you have a coffee?
Does he have your coffee?
Good point about the parking. Don't say anything already.
Oh. Out. So all these people showed up and they didn't talk.
Traffic consultant that from like 2 years ago that was here for them.
Thanks, Rick.
Pick up the pace.
Okay, this is application 101 Ridge Street, number 2 on our new matters calendar. Name and address for the record, and please proceed.
Good evening. My name is John Yanacito. I'm an architect, and I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Manginelli, the owners of the subject property. And I have Dominic Manginelli with me this evening. We are requesting an area variance to legalize the existing wood deck in the rear yard. which was constructed without permits several years ago. Just come up to the survey, the site plan here. So the existing deck is highlighted here in yellow, and the area that's outlined in red is the perimeter of the, or the extent of the amount of deck that requires a variance. The existing rear yard setback to the deck is currently 11.8 feet, and the required setback is 19 feet, a deficiency of 7.2 feet, or 38%. The wood deck is located in the rear yard, is not visible from the street or the neighboring properties. The existing rear yard is located adjacent to a parking lot for the Tuckahoe High School, and the existing landscaping and fencing provide adequate screening to the parking lot and also to the street. The requested variance is required for only a small portion of the deck. A majority of the deck does comply with the required setbacks. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yanacito. Okay, at this time, I'll send it over to the board. Any comments or questions, Mr. Cahalan?
None?
Mr. Miller?
No, just out of curiosity, is the house being put up for sale?
It's not, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think so, no.
Tends to be when these get legalized.
Well, he had a permit for the portico, and that's when we discovered that the deck was not conforming.
Mr. Conway?
No questions for me.
I don't have anything at this time. I make a motion to open the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Would anyone from the public like to be heard on this application? Okay, seeing no one, I make a motion.
Sorry to interrupt, just to note that we
Counselor.
did receive an email in favor of the application. Yeah, they were from the same,
No, they're two different people.
just both in favor of the application.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I should have noted that's part of the public record. Okay, so seeing no one, I make a motion to close the public hearing on this. Is there a second?
Second.
Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, back to the board, Mr. Cahalan?
Mr. Yanacito, you had an easy one.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
None.
Mr. Conway?
No.
No, I've reviewed your application, and you've met the 5-part test to my satisfaction. I make a motion to adjourn this for resolution at the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Take care. Well, a week first, then a week.
We're all looking for the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3 on the calendar, this is 2509 80 Park Avenue. Name and address for the record, and please proceed.
This is terrible.
Sure you're gonna let him know?
Oh, I am.
What's going on outside?
Good evening, Board. My name is Milot Shala. My name is spelled M-I-L-O-T. First, last is S-H-A-L-A. I'm accompanied this evening by the property owners of 80 Park Avenue with Diana Reitzai and Bernard Reitzai this evening. So we're presenting to the Board a lot, what we call, I guess we refer to in our, daily work as a large alteration. It's a removal of the existing second floor, first floor of the existing home. They purchased the home late last year, and we discovered that the home needs major repairs. Most of the walls need to be removed with respect to just, they're not square, plumb, and level, so the home needs to have major removals. And then we put together a proposition for essentially removing the superstructure and adding a new superstructure, but most importantly, adding some foundations to the rear of the home as well, while keeping most of the foundation at the front of the home. The existing home is non-conforming with respect to 2 sections of the zoning resolution, which have to deal with the side and front yard setbacks. So the front of the home encroaches at the front yard, as well at the left side yard. At the side yard is very minimal, about 4 inches, but at the front yard encroaches by, let's say, it's around, like 9.5 feet plus minus with existing front porch. So I'll just, if I may, just approach the drawings.
Please.
So I have a laser pointer. I hope that's okay with the board.
It's fine.
Sure.
So,
Just point at us.
the exhibit on the right shows existing conditions, and there's a green line here that's delineated that shows what the setback is as permitted as per the zoning resolution. And at the front here, we see how the first floor bumps into the front yard. If I may pass along, I have some photographs of the existing conditions, so you can recognize the bump at the front yard. If I may pass those along to the board members.
Sure.
Do you have just one that you can put up if you want to? Oh, you just have one packet. No, that's okay. You want to take a look?
So this photograph here shows the existing condition. This will be the portion of the first floor wall that bumps into the front yard, and that the second floor wall is essentially pushed in by 4 feet or so. So with respect to existing conditions, we want to keep the existing foundation wall, which is already encroaching, it's already non-conforming, and build up on top of it with a 2-story wall, and then we furthered that with a parapet wall, and we created a flat roof structure. With respect to design in terms of height, we recognize that the intent is to keep the building height lower than neighboring buildings. With a flat roof, we're able to accomplish that. With respect to a mean roof height, if we were to propose a gable or a peak roof, the roof will go much taller than the existing and the proposed roof. So our proposition is a simple square home that matches the design preference of Diana and Bernard, and they seem to be content with design direction that we're going forward. So this is, in a nutshell, this encompasses, this is basically just summarizes the design intent for the property. I would like to answer your questions because I'm sure you may have questions with respect to, the 4 area variances that we're seeking. So in essence, the existing home, like I stated at the beginning of the presentation, is non-conform with respect to section 4C5, and the proposal goes into 2 other sections, 9Q and 2D. So I'll just open, to your comments, and of course we can get into details.
Thank you for your presentation, which is very thorough and solid graphics. Mr. Cahalan, any comments or questions?
Unfortunately, I do.
Okay.
You designed a beautiful home, but it's totally out of character with the neighborhood. Completely out of character with the neighborhood. And in the back, you're proposing a sun deck up to the
Correct.
roof. So you're asking for an additional height variance of 1 foot to create that sun deck?
The height variance is with respect to so the height variance is only with respect to the first floor elevation, as it relates to first floor elevation to the front yard average grading, mean grade at average yard, at the front yard. We're lifting the first floor at the front only for a purpose of lifting the ceiling at the recreation room. However, the building is still way below the permitted.
Height level.
I'm sorry?
It's below the maximum height required.
Correct, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
By I think we're at 3.5 feet lower, as shown now.
Okay, good to know, but
Oh, absolutely. This is, if you look at the photograph of existing conditions, the existing home is about 21 feet. The proposed home will only add another 4 feet.
here's my thing. I read your proposal, and I laughed out loud when you actually wrote that you need to do this because the rooms are small in the existing house.
Correct.
Unfortunately, in 1948, when you said the house was built, that's what they built. And I understand you want to have as big a property as you want, but in that neighborhood, there is nothing like this. Maybe if you want to put that in Lake Isle Estates, absolutely. But on Park Ave, at that end, there's nothing like this at all. So from my perspective, you fail the character of the neighborhood, and there's nothing you could tell me that would make me believe that this is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. There's nothing there. I have a problem with the sun deck because privacy factor of your neighbors, back, front, I don't know. You can look right down on people. You know,
So
it'd be great if it was in the Hamptons or the Jersey Shore, but it's not there, it's in Eastchester. So I don't understand that feature, except I understand people want them. I get it, but
So thank you for your comments. I can point out a few homes that may have a very low roof, 4/12. I have 75 Park Avenue shown here that has a 4/12. You can barely see the roof as you're passing by. There's a similar home, I'll just point out here. But this one also has a low roof as well, 88 Park Avenue. You can barely see the roof on that one as well. So with respect, these are just directly opposite to the home. So again, to your point about the roof deck and,
Sorry to interrupt you, but could you just speak into the microphone? Thank
sorry.
you. Yeah.
So with respect to privacy and exposure, that's duly noted. Of course, the owners, they were aware that this is definitely out there. I mean, but however, since we're not really, most of the homes are not going to be towering over this home, so you may not have the window elevation on top of the roof.
I understand, and I don't want to make it all about that, but my big problem is you can't tell me that this house belongs in that neighborhood. Like I said, it's a gorgeous home, but
Duly
it's
noted.
totally out of keeping with the neighborhood. And to me, that's one of the biggest things that we have to pass on the test, is it going to change the character of the neighborhood? And I don't know how you get around convincing us that that's not going to change, how you're going to do that.
So, I would probably just add, if I may, that this is just a simple, clean line, modernist design. It doesn't insinuate more than what it is. There's no applied materials. It's just pure shape. That's all.
Like I said, it's gorgeous, but my problem is there's nothing in the area like that. And the new homes that are going up don't look like that. They just built one on the other side of Park, right? Doesn't look like that. It looks more like than when you go down the block. So that's all I got to say, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Godwin?
I have no questions or comments.
I don't have anything at this time. I make a motion to open the public hearing on this. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
Mr. Miller, all in favor? Aye. Would anyone from the public like to be heard on this application?
Getting excited when I beat you.
Okay, seeing no one, I make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
I'll second it.
Hold on, I'm sorry, Mr. Conway, a point of order, you're right, there are emails, were there emails sent on this application as well?
I don't remember seeing them on this application. I saw them on the previous one.
Yeah.
I did, there were 2 supporting emails.
Okay.
Letters, right?
I didn't see
Again,
them.
just as a procedural note, all of those
They weren't in my package.
hold on, gents, anything hearing being struck down is part of the public record. So it is part of the public record, but since we mentioned it on the other one, we might as well mention on this that these are supporting emails. Are there 2?
I
don't
did
see
not
them.
receive on this
I
application.
not
saw,
out
I saw 2.
That's for the
Okay.
previous app.
No, it's this one.
It
know
may
it's- I
look
know
like
it's-
it says Park, but when you read the letters,
Hold on, our stenographer's
ask
not going to get any of this.
Oh, they
so
were
let's-
submitted as part of the packet? Oh, okay.
I
got
didn't
it.
see that.
Yes, I'm sorry. So there were letters in support, but they were submitted as part of the application packet.
Right.
They didn't come in new
Right.
after the submission.
Okay.
Sorry,
So
sorry.
that's okay. Having noted that, now, let's see if we can complete the motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I did second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, back to the board. Sure, please.
Reopen the hearing.
Yeah, well, didn't we just
You
close it?
closed it, you gotta reopen it.
Well, he's the applicant, though.
The applicant, proceed.
Hi, good evening. I understand that maybe the design is not custom to the neighborhood per se, but most of the houses in the neighborhood, when you drive around, are not conforming to each other. You know, you got all different types of styles on the block, which we did take into account when we were looking to design this project. You know, the reason I went with this style was because I wanted to have like a nice open air space that we could enjoy an inside and outside part of living within 2,500 square feet. So, you know, we weren't trying to make something that was obtrusive to everyone that lives in the neighborhood. We do live in the neighborhood currently. We do know most of the families. We did push this project to a bunch of people to to different realtors, to different people in the neighborhood, just to get an idea if they thought that something that we were off with the design, and everyone seemed to love it. So just wanted to add
Everybody
that.
but me, huh?
Huh?
Everybody but me.
Well, it's okay. Well, just wanted to
You know,
know that. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
You know.
Mr. Galen?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, there's no cookie cutter homes on that block. Because I live in the neighborhood too, okay? And I go down Park 10 times a week, okay? So I know where you are, okay? So, yes, you're right that there's no cookie cutters, but there's nothing like this. There just isn't. You can't tell me,
Well, hold on.
you can't find another
One at a
car like that anywhere on Park.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Everybody, after it's built, we'll invite everybody over, and then we might.
Well, I'm gonna have to resign, so,
Okay, anything else, Mr. Cahalan?
no.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
No?
Mr. Conway?
Nothing.
Okay. My comment on this application, and that's why every board member is valued and have their own opinion, I think you've met the five-part test. As a matter of fact, Eastchester is the community I've chosen to live in for 30 years. I love it here. It's almost perfect, except they made the mistake of naming a Park Avenue and Park Drive and putting them together, which is maybe one of the dumbest things. And my neighbors and I have gotten to know each other because we deliver each other's mail. So I walk past this area frequently. I find the requested variances to be actually insubstantial, considering it's legal, part of it's
Well,
legal
Mr.
non-conforming.
Chairman?
Well, hold on. This is not, we're not trial here. I'll finish my thought, and if you feel you need to supplement, you may.
I will.
But not only do I not find it out of character, I think that progress starts when you make changes to an area. I have a tutor that was built with a tutor next to us, and then the only two tutors that were ever built on that block. So I'm not buying the argument about the character of the neighborhood being negatively affected. I see it positively affected, and I don't see it's out of the character at all. So that's my finding, and I'll have you another bite at the apple, but this is not between you and I, so proceed.
Absolutely, but the one thing I didn't talk about that I should have was, there is a substantial variance. You're asking for almost 20 feet from the porch to protrude out on the street. So this house is going to stick out even further because of that variance, if it's approved. So, you know, it's not just the one part of the test that I have a problem with.
Okay.
I think that's a substantial thing when you go down the street. You're gonna see this house.
Okay.
Because everybody else is set back pretty much to 30 feet.
So thanks again.
Fair
So
enough.
just to reiterate.
Don't
just-
thank me.
So just to reiterate
Okay.
once more, we're going to keep the same frontage, if you will. This is the existing garage. This is the existing location of the garage door. We're just extending, if you will, to the left of the garage. So we're not bumping further than the existing conditions.
Okay.
That's the best argument we can present to you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for the reply. So at this time, having seen nothing further from the board, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn this matter for resolution at the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, one more application on our calendar tonight. This is 25-10, 11 Maple Avenue. You could come forward. Give us your name and address for the record, and please proceed.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the ZBA, and Noel, who I spoke to. I'm Anthony DiGiuseppe. I'm the architect for Mr. Ronald Moog, who's here right here. It's for 11 Maple Avenue. It's for an area variance and parking, both. So this is an existing property and house that was built in 1920 it's a non-conforming side yards. It does conform to the front and rear yards. In fact, it's overcompensated. And the height of the building is 3 stories, and it's going to remain 3 stories. So that's not changing. What is changing is the fact that we are going to align the footprint with both the second and third floor. Right now, the first floor is full on the footprint. The second floor is partially full on the rear and full on the second floor. The third floor is set back on the front, on the street facade, and it's also set back the same as the second floor in the rear of the building. So the proposal is to build on the footprint straight up and to have the roof line, which now has a setback at an angle on the third floor, and make that a complete hip roof from the front to the back. It does overhang on the sides, the roof 3 feet, which is still 3 feet, and on the front and the rear, it overhangs 5 feet, which is still within the setback of the front and rear. I do have a plan here which shows.
Can you take the microphone with you, please? We have a stenographer that has to take down everything word by word.
Thank you. So in the site plan here, you can see the darker line is the outside of the footprint. The dotted line here is the roof line and the overhang. So you have 5 feet here, 5 feet here, 3 feet here, 3 feet here. The existing driveway is existing, it's not being changed. The paving, which is on these walkways, which are here, are all existing and not being changed. And around the building, between the paving and the building footprint, there is some plantings that are existing there, and those would remain as well. So we're not increasing the bituminous driveway at all. The trees and the plantings in the garden and the rear are staying. They're not being removed. So that's all in existence. The parking, it calls for 5 parking spaces. This only is 3 stories. It's only 4 bedrooms in total. 2 on the top floor, 1 on the ground floor, and 1 on the second floor. So we feel that having 3.5 spaces is sufficient for this type of 3-story, 3-unit building. In addition to what we put down here, which shows a 9 by 18 parking spaces, and then a smaller car behind the other one in this space here, works very well. In fact, there is more room there than we're really showing, because we actually went today, we brought 2 Tahoes and we put them back to back along here, and they both fit. So not only is the parking, I think, sufficient for the type of units these are, this is multifamily, but also there are parking spaces on the opposite side of Maple Avenue. In fact, right in front of the building, there are 6 parking spaces, and I checked with the town clerk, and there is parking permits that are available for Maple Avenue as well. So that's the presentation. Have any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Mr. Cahalan?
No.
Miller?
No.
Todway?
No.
I don't have anything at this time. I make a motion to open the public hearing on this matter. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, would anyone from the public like to be heard on this matter? Okay, seeing nobody, I make a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, back to the board. Anything further, Mr. Cahalan?
Nope.
Mr. Miller?
Still none.
Mr.
No.
Conway? I don't have anything at this time. I make a motion to adjourn this application for resolution at the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, and we will be back on March
11th.
11th. Thank you. Is there a second to my motion?
Second.
Mr. Cahalan, all in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you. Okay, take care.